Yeah, welcome in. Welcome back to another live episode of the Format Podcast. Yes. Thank you for joining me. I appreciate it if you're here. Gonna have my main man Eugene here. He was here with me last week. We had some good content, and this week we're gonna do the same, but we're gonna do it better. So we're definitely gonna talk about it. Got some awesome topics on tap for you. So stick with me. But before we get to all that, if you haven't already and you're here on YouTube, please go ahead, click that like, that subscribe, and that notification bell. Make sure you're notified whenever we drop new content on the channel. If you want the audio only version of the podcast and you haven't already, please open up your audio podcast platform, hit the search bar, type in the Format Podcast, and we should come right up. If you're enjoying the content, please give us that like, that 5-star review, and drop a comment. All that stuff helps us rise in the algorithm, helps us find more sports fans, helps more sports fans find us. And remember, put it on your calendar, set it on your phone, set an alarm, whatever you got to do every week, every Saturday evening here at 7 p.m. We're going to be doing these live shows, and it's ready to go, man. I got some good stuff for you today, so let's make it happen. All right, G, what's going on, my man? Welcome back.
Bruce, how's it going, man?
Maintaining, brother, maintaining. So let's get right to it, man. We got some good topics today. So we're gonna start with NBA, y'all. And just so you know, this whole show is not going to be NBA, but trust me, you'll enjoy it. So we are gonna start with NBA, and of course, when you start with NBA, where do we start? We start with the face of the NBA, right? LeBron James. And hey, people going to say, oh, all you talk about is LeBron James. All you talk about is LeBron James. Well, y'all tell me he's the greatest of all time and he's the face of the league. So, of course, we got to talk about him, right? Now, check this out. You hear a lot of stuff about LeBron from the mainstream media, right? We hear about him being in the GOAT debate. Most people, if they don't have him as the greatest of all time, they have him as the second best player of all time. And you hear, like I always say, people talk about LeBron like he walks on water and heals the sick and raises the dead and all this nonsense, right? And yes, he's an all-time great player. He's had an all-time great career. But there's a lot of players out there who don't believe it. A lot of former players, a lot of current players who don't see LeBron the way Klutch Sports wants us to see LeBron, the way LeBron wants us to see LeBron, and of course, the way the mainstream sports media wants us to see LeBron, and the way the NBA wants us to see LeBron. They just don't. And it's funny, right? Because the way they talk about LeBron, they want you to think he's flawless. But when I talk about him and I give the truth about him and I kind of open up and I explain, hey, well, this is that and this is that, they say, oh, you a hater. All you want to do is tear another black man down and this, that, and the third. And I'm like, I'm a hater. Oh, that's interesting. So I guess because I'm a hater of LeBron, that makes all y'all who call me a hater, that makes y'all lovers, right? I know. You're going to say, oh, that's corny. But guess what? If I'm a hater, y'all love him. And it's wild because you have grown men out here twerking it up and acting stupid and ready to jump all over LeBron, and all this grown men acting like fools. For instance, let me give you an example, and you'll see where I'm going with this in a minute. But let me give you an example.
Buzzer sounded. There was a little bit of an incident here courtside at the Crypto.com arena. Dylan Brooks was having words with Shannon Sharp, Hall of Famer and broadcast.
And you see Steven Adams comes over to protect his guy along with the supporting cast. And then Shannon Sharp still talking. And T. Morant, John Morant's dad, comes over. Had an opportunity to talk to T. Morant. And he said, my blood pressure didn't go up a bit. Nothing but love and respect for Shannon Sharp. It's a bunch of guys talking a bunch of trash.
Now, Mark Jackson said it right at the end of that clip. None but love and respect for Shannon Sharp. And that's a fact. What he's been able to do, first as a player in the NFL, becoming a Hall of Famer, and then in his post-playing career as a broadcast guy and being involved in all of this, and Club Shay Shay and Nightcap and ESPN First Take and was it FS1 Undisputed, all the success he's had, all the love in the world to that dude. However, that dude is like mid-50s, got 2 replaced hips. And if you remember that game last year, he was out there really ready to fight over LeBron because I think he said something to the effect like LeBron scored in that game against the Grizzlies and he yelled something like too small, I think, to Dylan Brooks. And then Dylan Brooks said something back to him and he's out there really ready to fight. And then you saw John Morant's dad and they was ready to get into it, to the point that Shannon Sharp really had to come back on TV the following morning and apologize for his behavior. Grown man. But I'm a hater, right? But y'all don't see nothing wrong with grown men acting like this, right? Earlier this week on ESPN First Take, Shannon Sharp and Kendrick Perkins were literally yelling at each other, arguing about who has been a LeBron supporter for longer. I'm not going to use the word I want to use, but I'll just say who's been riding LeBron for longer. Like, that's absurd to me. Grown men. Kendrick Perkins in his mid-40s, Shannon Sharp in his mid-50s, and they literally arguing on TV, national TV, about who loves LeBron more. You got to be kidding me. You got to be kidding me. So anyway, the reason I'm bringing all this up is because Dr. J is one of the all-time great basketball players, NBA, ABA, right? And Dr. J was recently being interviewed by NBA reporter Chris Haynes, and Dr. J, like many of the all-time greats and some of the players today, did not have LeBron James in his top 5 all-time players. And so Chris Haynes, I guess he was astounded by that, because being a younger journalist and a mainstream media guy, he can't conceive of how anybody can act like LeBron James is not God. But here's what Dr. J had to say about that. So let's check that out, and then we'll come back and we'll get G's thoughts on this.
When you look at, LeBron and, anybody he sort of picks with him to be, playing with so many guys, the guy who has led the charge in terms of super teams being put together. Yeah. When he put together a team in Miami, he put together a team together in Cleveland as well, and put together a team in Los Angeles or whatever. Mm-hmm. So he could pick his own team. I ain't gonna pick his team. Right there. Not bad about LeBron.
Yeah, I'm not Jake. LeBron would argue, because I know he probably come back to me, but he will argue that these super teams always existed. If you look at all the championship teams, they've always had 2, 3, or even sometimes 4 All-Stars.
Players weren't picking their own teams. When Kareem got traded for 4 players from Milwaukee to Los Angeles, that was management's deal. That wasn't his deal. And when he and Magic and Worthy got together, they got together because they traded for Kareem. They drafted Magic the next year. They already had Worthy, Paul Wilkes, or whatever. So so they were a super team. And
so, G, before I get to you, one thing I want to point out real quick. Now, notice what Chris Haynes said when he kind of pushed back on Dr. J's sentiments about LeBron not being in top 5 and picking his own team. He said LeBron is probably going to come back to me. Now, when I talk about LeBron and his team controlling the narrative and controlling the media all the time, again, you a hater. You trying to tear another black man down. But we are hearing right there that he's literally trying to control the media. So I'm going to go ahead and get off my soapbox now. Give me your thoughts on what Dr. J said and some of your thoughts about what I said earlier in terms of, all the nonsense with LeBron and grown men.
All right. So the whole Kendrick Perkins and Shannon Sharp romance, or whatever you want to call it, them going back and forth.
Yeah. I
think that's kind of common. Like you said earlier, LeBron, anytime you mention LeBron, that's a soundbite. His name is going to ring. A lot of people will be attracted to any commentary that LeBron that has or includes LeBron. That's why it's it was a no-brainer for Dr. J to bring it up. I did a small study in the cigar lounge the other day where I had a couple of my buddies give me their top 5 in their prime, and 2 out of the 3 didn't have LeBron in their starting 5. So it started to get common where people see, he's a super role player. He can dominate. He can dominate the game. Ways we haven't seen.
Okay,
but he definitely need help doing it. Like, he's not a one-man show. Yeah, I would call him a glorified Scottie Pippen, without the defense. So he plays hard enough to turn the tide on the court.
Mm-hmm.
But man, I don't understand the bromance. How everybody is just so pro LeBron. I mean, it's just a different caliber of player, right? Like that Klutch gene. I mean, we went through a few years where he was blowing layups at the end of the game. And so, that's my views. Dr. J wasn't wrong for saying, I don't want him in my top 5, or I'm not gonna put him in his top 5. That's his choice. But you know, if you're talking about just this era, like how can you not?
Well, yeah, but I think when they asked Dr. J, I'm sure they asked him like all time, not just this era. I mean, I would assume that it was all time.
Yeah.
So I don't think I've ever asked you this. What do you have your top 5 all time?
Man, it depends on the day of the week.
Okay.
You know, some days I'm in killer mode, you know, and I'm like, wow, like just for instance, I just looked, and like a lot of people don't put John Stockton in their top 5.
I wouldn't.
He leads the league in assists.
By far.
Huh?
Yeah. By
far, yeah. But people won't put him in their top 5.
I wouldn't though.
Yeah. I just look at Flash. We can do that another show. Yeah,
I got you. So it's interesting that you brought that up. Like right before we got on the show, I was looking at some other stuff, and it came across my phone. I don't know how recent this was, but Bruce Bowen put out his top 5 players of all time, and I thought it was interesting that his are number 1, Michael Jordan, number 2, Kobe Bryant, number 3, Bill Russell, great Bill Russell, number 4, Magic Johnson, number 5, Tim Duncan. Now, I'm not mad at that top 5. It's not my top 5 all time, but I'm definitely not mad at it. When you got, obviously I got Jordan number 1. So I'll just, my top 5 is, in this order is Mike, Magic, Kareem, Larry Bird, and then Hakeem Olajuwon. That's my top 5 all time. So, I mean, I totally get it. And obviously, you know, Bruce Bowen playing with Tim Duncan and then being so close to the Spurs organization for all these years and watching what he's been able to do and how he pretty much dominated the league as a non-flashy player for so long, you got to give it up to him. Tim Duncan's in my top 10, but he's not in my top 5. And again, I'm not mad at Bruce Bowen's top 5 at all, because I guess the argument would be if we see Michael Jordan as basketball perfection, and we often hear that Kobe Bryant is the closest thing we'll ever see to Michael Jordan, if you want to put him at number 2, that makes logical sense. So I totally get that. I've heard Chauncey Billups say that Kobe Bryant is the most skilled player that he's ever seen. I don't think I would completely argue that either, man, because Kobe could just, I mean, he could do, his package was incredible, you know. He could do it all, from athleticism to skill set, to his moves, to his footwork, all of it. Like, Kobe was not missing anything. What do you think of Bruce Bowen's top 5 players all time?
It's just a top 5. Like, now I'm sitting here and I'm thinking, like, all right, well, what drove you to make those players your top 5?
Me?
Yeah. Was it off of stats or just favorite players?
So when I look at top 5, it's less favorite players. So there's there's a few different things that go into it for me. It's statistical production, it's winning, it's eye test in terms of skill set, it's you know, how you play both sides of the ball, and then obviously, you know, how you can or cannot impact your teammates. So obviously Michael Jordan, like we said, most people view him basketball perfection. I look at Magic Johnson and I say, this is a guy that, and I've said this for years, if I was tall enough and I was in shape and I played with the Lakers, I could average 5 or 6 off the bench. You just got to run and he's going to find you. He can make anybody better. I think he's clearly the greatest floor leader in the history of the game. And for those who want to argue, like I got a homeboy and he argues, you know, Kareem this, Kareem that. And I'm like, yes, Kareem, all-time great. But we keep forgetting Kareem was in LA for 5 years before Magic got there and couldn't even get out of the conference. Magic Johnson arrives in instant championship. You know what I mean?
I'm definitely ready to share my top 5 now.
All right. Go ahead, man.
Based off of how you picked yours. So Mike, Cole.
Okay.
Melo.
B more.
AG,
okay.
Shaq.
Who is your 4th?
Kevin Garnett.
Wow. Yeah. I mean, that's your top 5.
That's my top 5.
That's your top 5.
Yeah.
I don't even have Melo and KG in my top 10. And I think they're both incredible players. I think Melo didn't win enough. And I think he didn't really, to me, it seems like Melo didn't win enough. And he also didn't, he didn't even attempt to play defense. And so that kind of bothers me. Like, that's why, like, you know, Kobe, I'm cool with KG, you know, the two-way guys I think are big. Danny, I feel you. And let me comment on this real quick, G. Kareem did win a championship without Magic, but he won that with Oscar Robertson, right? So he won those championships that he won were with arguably, you know, two of the top 5 or 6 point guards of all time. And don't get me wrong, especially back then, you know, if you're a big, you needed somebody to get you the ball. So I get it. But, you know, you look at Kareem, he's winning MVPs and he's not getting out of the conference. I mean, but then again, it's a regular season award, but you know. So Danny, you must have missed it. Let me repeat that for you. My top 5 all time in this order is it's Michael Jordan, Magic Johnson, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, Larry Bird, Hakeem Olajuwon is my 5th. So, and you know, not to disrespect anybody, but that's just how I see it. But yeah, so back to Dr. J. I just thought that was so interesting that Dr. J is another guy who doesn't see LeBron where so many people want us to see LeBron. And the fact is, it's the same thing we always talk about. LeBron tried so hard to grease the skids and do it the easy way, and people just don't respect that. Modern players don't respect it. We talked about Jeff Teague with that the last week. The all-time greats from the past don't respect it. We see Dr. J telling it. We've heard, as great as LeBron is, we've heard Reggie Miller say it. We've heard all these guys say it like, yo, we're not doing that, right? I mean, Larry Bird has said that, and I'll give him his credit. Larry Bird is almost humble to a fault. He said that, you know, LeBron is one of the greatest we've ever seen. He's incredible. But at the same time, he said, if I want to win, I'm going to play with Kobe. If I want to have fun, I'm going to play with LeBron. Like, that says something, does it not?
Yeah, 2 different positions, but yeah.
Right. But think about it. We know, what was Bird about? Bird wasn't about stats. Bird wasn't about none of that. Bird was about, I'm trying to beat you. I'm trying to win, right? And so he understands that. But yeah, so getting back to it, yeah, so Dr. J is just another example of another all-time great who doesn't have LeBron where they want us to have him. Bruce Bowen is a guy who's not an all-time great, but played in the league for a long time and doesn't have LeBron where they want us to have him. At what point are these LeBron fans who are out here acting crazy all the time going to realize that no amount of media and narrative control is going to make LeBron more than what he is? No amount of padding stats is going to make LeBron more than what he is. Be satisfied. You've had an all-time great career. Many people think you're a top 5 guy. A lot of people think you're a top 2 guy. A lot of people think you're the GOAT. A lot of people don't. It's going to be what it's going to be. But yeah, let's go ahead and we'll move on from that. But before we do, we're going to give you a chance to, I know we only got a couple in here in the chat, but we'll go ahead and give you an opportunity if you want to call in, give your thoughts on it. 904-219-8264. 904-219-8264. You can go ahead and give us a call, but we'll open those phone lines up. In the meantime, we'll go ahead and move to the next topic, kind of keep things moving along. So the next one was, and I thought this was super interesting, Isaiah Thomas was on the Draymond Green show earlier in the week, and I thought that it was a pretty good interview. I'm not going to say it was a great interview. It was a good interview, and Isaiah had a lot to say. Of course, he had to talk about the Jordan thing, and realistically, you know, as a guy who went to journalism school, if I'm interviewing Isaiah Thomas as well, I'm going to ask him about the Jordan stuff, right? I get it. Now, I'm not going to get too deep into that, but the fact of the matter is, no matter what Isaiah says and no matter what he explains to us, and he makes a lot of fair points, at the end of the day, Isaiah's voice just does not carry the same way Michael Jordan's voice carries in NBA circles and among NBA fans. It's just not. And every single thing that you're telling Isaiah could be the truth, but you just can't win this one. You're going up against Michael Air Jordan. Like, there's nothing you can do. And it also doesn't help that you're on wax on many different occasions, flip-flopping back and forth about who's the greatest of all time. Have you heard that stuff, G?
Yeah, I heard it.
Yeah. I mean, you got some cases he's saying, back in the day, he's saying Michael Jordan's the greatest. Then he's saying Kareem is the greatest. Now he's saying LeBron. It's like, okay, come on, which one is it? And clearly, you can see obviously The Last Dance and the the revived angst and animus between those two has a lot to do with how he's talking about Michael Jordan now. And the thing I say about this, and I'm going to get your opinion on Zeke in a minute, G. The thing I say about it that really frustrates me is that this Michael Jordan, Isaiah Thomas thing is so tough because people don't realize now what a great player Isaiah Thomas was. Because this whole thing is just making like a caricature of him and what he has been as a basketball player. Like, did you play 2 or you played the 1, G?
2.
Okay. So you're not a point guard, but you are a guard. So you know what type of elite player Isaiah Thomas was. Give me your thoughts on him as a player.
I thought he was he opened the floor for a lot of other players. I mean, his ball skills was phenomenal. His ball handler, mid-range jump shot. You know, he was a true point guard. Yeah, he was a true and a champion. So, I mean, his words does weigh something though. It is worth something. Anytime you win a chip and you're the leader of your team, which was a rival of Mike's. So it's good commentary to see them two like kind of not them two go at it, but to hear him flip flop. You know, that could be
Right.
you're just not feeling him.
Yeah. To me, it's frustrating because you look at what Isaiah Thomas was able to do, and this is the thing that I always point to. Like, he won in high school, and then he won a national championship in college with Bob Knight. So you know he knows how to play the game the right way. You know he knows how to think the game. And then he went to 3 straight finals and won 2 championships and put up one of the guttiest performances in NBA Finals history on that ankle. And you can go look that up for yourself because that was absolutely incredible. And we know what type of player this dude was, right? And clearly now, him being kept off the dream team, you could see how much that's eaten at him for all these years. And then, of course, finding out that Mike had something to do with it and blah, blah, blah. Like that's killing him. And so it seems like every interview he goes on and everywhere he goes, he's trying to plead his case. And I get it, but Isaiah, you got to let that go because this is making it even worse that Mike is just sitting back, not even saying anything. Like, Mike don't care.
Yeah.
You know? You heard Charles Oakley say it. Hey, Isaiah, stop. Mike don't like you. Like, you know, that's
Everybody's not gonna like you.
Right. Everyone's not gonna like you. But I think what's frustrating, Isaiah, like I said, is that his basketball legacy is also being forgotten in the midst of this. But I mean, there's no way to win it. So you just got to chill, sit back, and let what you did speak for itself. Eventually, this thing will calm down and play out, and people will be able to go back and look and say, yo, this dude was a problem. Because he also was like one of the original guys who was a scoring point guard. But still, I think he averaged 9.3 assists for his career. So he's dishing the rock, he's running the offense, he's playing D, and he could still score if you needed him to.
Yeah.
So it's like it's tough. But anyway, I kind of digressed on that. But one of the other topics that I wanted to get to is that while on that interview with Draymond Green, he brought up the topic that Kevin Durant, when he went to the Warriors, saved the Warriors' legacy. And I thought that was really interesting. And so I'm going to play the clip, and then I'm going to come back and get your thoughts, and then I'll get my thoughts on it. So check this out.
Before Kevin Durant arrived in Golden State, y'all were on the verge of and being remembered as the team that went 73-9 and lost to a Cleveland Cavalier team in the finals, 3-1. You up 3-1, and probably one of the biggest collapse in NBA Finals history from a 73-9 historical team. Kevin Durant comes that summer and really saves y'all basketball legacy. And you win 2 championships after that. And now you're the Golden State Warriors dynasty that you're going to go into the Hall of Fame on and everything else. It is cemented because if Durant don't come that summer and you guys are remembered as the 73-9 team that lost 3-1 in the NBA Finals, all of your legacies are different. So all of you with Kevin Durant, y'all are, right? And that was a powerful moment in sport that he should be rewarded for, but also your team should be rewarded for accepting a juggernaut like that and being able to incorporate it. And what y'all did was beautiful, man. It was beautiful.
All right, G. So I'm not even gonna talk. I'm gonna let you talk first, man. What are your thoughts on his commentary about KD saving the legacy of the Warriors?
Saying that prior to him coming, that they would have lost in the finals 3-1, or if they wouldn't have picked him up, they would. I didn't kind of understand it. So the summer that they went 70, or the season before they went 73 wins, 73-9, right?
Mm-hmm.
They added Durant. Is that correct?
Because they lost in the finals that year, right? Okay. They didn't finish the deal.
Yeah, so I mean, that's a valid point. You can say that, but I mean, who's not going to win with those guys, right? I mean, that's. I thought that was a little payback, right? I think that was a little payback for LeBron, right? That was a little payback. That's all that was. But it kind of happens. KD is a phenomenal scorer. His range is limitless. He can hit from anywhere past the half court. He got this move where he push hard left and then go behind his back and pull up as a 7-footer. That's fucking hard to defend. As a bucket every time. Zeke is getting old, man. So sometimes, you listen to him, you're like, oh man, what the hell is he talking about? And he makes sense, but that's like common knowledge, right?
So, I don't completely agree with Zeke on this, and let me tell you where I'm coming from. So, obviously, the Warriors won their first championship in 2015. I believe that was Steph's MVP, his first MVP season, and they followed up the following year, absolutely on fire, as we know, 73-9. Steph wins, unanimous MVP, only player ever in history to do that. Okay. And they go through, and they're down. They themselves, the Warriors, are down 1-3 in the playoffs against OKC. They come back and close the deal. Kevin Durant can't get it done. He can't finish that. All right. And then obviously they go on to the finals and they get beat after being up 3-1. No team had ever come back in the finals from being down 1-3 to win a championship. And of course, LeBron James gets all the credit for that. And let me be clear, LeBron had an incredible NBA Finals series, and he generally does. Now, a lot of times he has incredible numbers in getting blown out. That's a different story. But in this series that they came back and won the championship, that was a phenomenal series by LeBron. Now, what I want to say is, and I've been adamant about this, if you go back and look, the NBA and Adam Silver gave LeBron a stimulus package, plain and simple. They saved him because those dudes were about to get blown out. And that series was about to be over. But we know the leagues always want a longer series if they can have it, more ad revenue, so on and so forth. They're not left paying make goods. Now, I'm not saying they fixed the series, but by tossing Draymond, nah, man, that series was over. They tossed him, and then, of course, blah, 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 all the way back, right? Okay, cool. Now, as a quick side note, I think I actually did a YouTube short, and I highlighted it. So when LeBron, pulled the move and got Draymond suspended, right? When Draymond was down, LeBron could have went around him to the left. He could have went around him to the right, but he chose to deliberately step over him and disrespect him by putting his man region on the back of Draymond's neck. So, of course, Draymond reacts, and then he gets tossed, and then he gets suspended. Now, a lot of people are going to say that was payback for all the stuff that he was doing earlier in the season and earlier in the playoffs, but that's not how you do it, man. You don't do that in the finals. But anyway, they suspend him for the game, whatever, and the series now, about momentum. Big Mo takes a totally different turn, and obviously the Cavaliers seize it, and the rest is history. But so I look at it like, okay, cool. The Warriors are saying, damn, we blew a chance at being the best team ever, at least record-wise. And they said, okay, NBA, we're going to get you back. That's cool. You set us up. We're going to set you up now. And they went out and they got Kevin Durant. And again, totally upset the balance of power in the next 2 years. It was a breeze. They walked through, win 2 championships. Kevin Durant is finals MVP. And I get it. Kevin Durant played an incredible role in the NBA finals and on those teams, but it's the same argument I like to make. That's like adding a nuclear weapon to an infantry company. Like, what are you going to do? You know what I mean? It's just, at that point, there's nothing you can do. And they ran through it. And they probably would have got 3 in a row if Durant didn't get hurt, right? Or, well, yeah, he got hurt in that series against Toronto. But the point I'm trying to make is this was a really good this was a great team, and they had, they were dominant. But to say that he saved their legacies, I would agree with that if we didn't have the bookend championships without him. So you got the championship in 2015 without him. Then you got the championship in, what was that, 2021 against the Celtics, 2022. So they win again without him. 2 years after he leaves, they win again with a similar cast. And so I say, okay, we can say all we want that Kevin Durant is the guy who saved their legacy, but how can we say that when they proved they could win without him on 2 different occasions, before and after? So, like, what are your thoughts on that? I know I was long-winded with that, but where are you on that?
Yeah. I look at KD and, the whole franchise of what Steph has been able to do with Golden State. And I think what happens is a lot of times people don't give him the credit that he deserves. And maybe some of Isaiah Thomas' comments was directed more at Steph and not so much at glorifying KD, right? Could have been a shot that he do stuff like that. So from one guard to another, right? Like he's not giving Steph his credit because, like you said, he did do it before he was there, and then he was able to do it after. If that answers the question.
Well, one thing I can say, in fairness to Isaiah, I think he talks about Steph as being one of the all-time great point guards, but he does also identify that so Steph is, I guess, technically called a point guard, but I think we know he's not really one, right? He's a tweener. He's a small shooting guard. He's what we call a combo guard, right? And so Isaiah, in this same interview, did acknowledge that while Steph is all-time great, he's not really a point guard because he doesn't run the offense. He doesn't initiate the offense. Draymond does all that. He's not the primary distributor. Now, can he do those things? Absolutely. I think in his best year, actually playing the point guard position, he averaged a little over 8 assists a game. And that was back when Mark Jackson was a head coach. So Steph can do those things, but that's just not the way that they run offense. And so, I don't think Isaiah was necessarily taking a shot at Steph. I think he really does believe what he's saying, but I just can't get with the premise that Kevin Durant saved their legacies. Because to me, the other problem is you look at Kevin Durant and you say, one, he only got there because he couldn't close the deal against Golden State the previous year, right? So there's that. And then 2, you look at it as, okay, he got busy with Golden State, huh?
That was wild.
That was wild, right?
Yeah, that was wild.
But then after he leaves Golden State, he's not happy there. He doesn't feel like he's ever going to get the credit he deserves. Everybody knows that's Steph's team and Steph's city and all that. Fantastic. But now he moves on. He sets up his super team. And for a bunch of other reasons, he can't get over the hump there either. And now he's on another quote unquote super team, right? Loaded up with talent. And chances are he's not going to win a championship there. So now you're wondering, okay, how is he the savior of legacies when he's had his opportunity to prove it elsewhere and he can't get it done? It's like the same argument of, Scottie Pippen saved Michael Jordan. But then you say, well, wait a minute. Scottie Pippen had his opportunities when Mike wasn't there to play on outstanding teams and could not win without Mike. So that's where I am on that. Like, what are your thoughts on KD and being, on other teams that were loaded up with talent and not being able to get the job done there either? Granted, there were other circumstances, but still.
Yeah, I mean, it's a team sport. And so, yeah, he's going to give you 30, right? 20, 30 points a game. Is he going to stop anyone? I don't know. I don't know if his defense is enough to turn the tide and actually win a chip, right? Without somebody like a Pittman style player or a a lockdown defender like a Ron Artest or somebody that can, can kind of get in and add extra defense on one of your primary players. But I mean, this league nowadays, everybody going bucket for bucket, and there's who can score the most buckets win the game. So, will he get over the top? I don't know.
I don't see it.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah,
I don't see it. But at the end of the day, he's an all-time great scorer. He's a 2-time Finals MVP, a 2-time champion. Nobody's going to be able to forget that. But a guy like me, I got to look at the totality and say, he's another one kind of greased the skids. Now, at the same time, they went and got him, right? So was he supposed to say no in that situation? So
yeah. Was that Brooklyn you're talking about or Golden State?
When he went to Golden State.
Okay.
Yeah. They went and got him.
Yeah.
So it's like, all right,
Yeah. That's crazy though. Do you accept? You don't accept, especially if they beat you year before. You don't really accept a play on their team.
I don't think I would.
Yeah.
I don't think I would, but it's a different generation, man. Yeah. A quick side note, it's funny. Kevin Durant and me had the exact same birthday. I'm 10 years older than him to the day. Thought that was kind of weird. Yeah.
Different basketball back then.
Then. That's right. Yeah. All right. So we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna skip the calls. We kind of got a low count in the show today, but that's cool. So we'll skip the calls and we will go ahead and move on. Now we're gonna move away from the NBA. We talk a lot of NBA here, and that's love. And next week we'll get right back to it and talk some more. But I wanted to take a time because obviously the Format Podcast talks different sports, and I want to move on to college athletics, mainly college football, right? Because this is where the brunt of the attention is. But, it's college football and basketball, the two main revenue-producing sports. But college football has changed a whole lot very quickly. Obviously, we've seen the college football playoff come into effect, and then we've seen a ton of conference realignment. We've seen the college football playoff expand from 4 teams to now 12, and then the possibility in a few years of it expanding to 14. And we know at the end of the day, everything's about money. We've also seen finally players being able to be compensated for their name, image, and likeness, and that has opened a whole new can of worms, NIL. Now, the way NIL was kind of originally thought to work and kind of supposed to be designed was so that a player can compensate again off their name, image, and likeness. And that basically came from Ed O'Bannon bringing suit against the NCAA for, I think, using their name, image, and likeness in the NCAA video games, in the basketball game, as well as in the EA Sports basketball game, as well as EA Sports college football. And this was about 10 years ago. And so eventually it worked out that the Supreme Court ended up ruling that these players got to be compensated, and that it's illegal to not allow them to be compensated. So now you're seeing what's called NIL, where guys can basically, if we're real, it's pay to play, right? We see that. And one of the things that was kind of put in place, I guess, in the rules on NIL is that it's not supposed to be an inducement. Like, you're not supposed to be able to use NIL to pay someone to come to your school as a recruit. You're also not supposed to be able to use NIL to induce someone into the transfer portal so that they can leave where they are and come play for you. But since the NCAA took so long to kind of get to a point where players could be compensated after all these years that the NCAA and these schools have made, untold billions off the backs of these players, it's really hard to put any legitimate guidelines in place and to properly adjudicate them, right? And so now you're seeing a lot of the older coaches stepping away from the game. And Nick Saban is arguably the greatest college football coach of all time. And he's had a lot to say about NIL. And he was recently on Capitol Hill, and he was talking about his thoughts on NIL. This was a couple days ago, right, G?
Yep.
Yeah. So let's go ahead and play a clip, some of what he had to say, and then we'll come back and talk about it.
So no sound.
Okay, so it looks like we had a little technical difficulty there. Apologize. But basically, Saban was saying things along the lines of, why am I still doing this? All these players want to know is how much playing time they're going to get and how much they're going to get paid. And, he's talking about how all he's ever wanted to do was help to develop players as people and as possibly help them to have a career in football if they're good enough. And basically he was trying to make it sound like, oh, woe is me and things have changed so much. And so I thought it was total BS, right? Now, as I mentioned earlier, I'm all in favor of having some type of guidelines to attempt to level the playing field and have some sort of standardization, right? So that it's not just a matter of, the bigger schools with the most money can buy up all the best players. Like, that's not cool. And that kind of theoretically takes away from what, college football and basketball is supposed to be, right? Realistically, it's always been like that because we know that a lot of the bigger schools have been, they've been brown bagging it and paying these players under the table for a long time. But now that the players can openly demand money and demand to be compensated, and you don't have any type of guidelines or salary structure around it, now you got the problem because it also takes control away from these coaches. And then you add in the transfer portal, where basically if a player is not happy, if a coach leaves, they can go into the transfer portal. They feel like they're not getting enough playing time, they go into the transfer portal. If they're not happy where they are, they can go into the transfer portal. If they feel like another school will pay them more, they can go into the transfer portal. And I guess a lot of people will call that capitalism, but now I'm going to stop talking. But G, as someone who's been involved in college athletics, go ahead and give us your thoughts on this. Give us your thoughts on Saban. Do you think he's a hypocrite for going on Capitol Hill and saying this stuff? And where are you on compensation? Do you think there should be any type of guidelines around it? What do you think?
I think the transfer portal, NIL, is huge, right? That's big for the college player. A lot of times, before there was a transfer portal, you had to jump through so many hurdles just to be able to play the next year. Oftentimes, you had to sit down if you transferred, and now you don't have to do that. And so that's extremely big. Compensation. I think one of the highest earners right now is Bronny, Caleb, and Shador, right? Sanders. So these guys are raking in millions. Just if you think about every player that came before them that didn't get that NIL money and how much money that could have helped their family, because a lot of them didn't span out in the NFL. But if I jump to Nick Saban and him testifying at Congress and saying that he believed that it's not beneficial to the players, the sport, I think that's not true. When he say things like he spoke to NFL players, NFL coaches, and they believe that the kids aren't as developed now as they were before. I don't believe. I can't say that that's not true, but I mean, how do you measure that, right? Like, how can you measure that?
I think there may be some truth to that real quick, because if you're going from school to school and you're not having the opportunity to be in any one system long enough to build up that skill set, you know what I mean? I think there may be some truth to it, but yeah, go ahead.
You might. It may make you better, with a new coach every year versus, having to be coached by the same person. All coaching systems aren't the best, and they aren't all equal. So you might find yourself in a better situation if you leave versus staying and playing behind a senior. You're a freshman, you better, but he's been there 3 years, and so why stick around? So I like the fact that the players now have more control in their college careers based off of those two assets, or those two NIL and the transfer portal. I like that. Nick Saban, of course, everybody knows there's 7 rings, 7 national championships, 1 with LSU, and then the other 6 with Bama. So, I mean, his name, it definitely has some weight to what he's saying. I just don't believe you should speak from that level about all players, right? Because for some players, that NIL money is the difference between eating, soybean and steak, so I think, yeah, that's all.
I think it's kind of disingenuous by him as well, because this is a dude, man. He's made so much freaking money off of these players, right? And I don't think it's cool at all. Just based on the fact that he's eating so well, and now he's complaining about these players getting it. And I understand to some extent from a coach's standpoint in terms of trying to build a program and the amount of turnover that they're seeing every year now, and the lack of, I want to say, institutional control that they previously had as head coaches, I think that creates issues, right? Now, if you notice, the younger coaches are just like, yo, this is what it is. We got to roll with it. We got to make it work. And they're telling even the older coaches, I think the new coach at Arizona State, I cannot, at Arizona, I can't remember his name, but he was basically like, listen, if you don't want to deal with that, you can go ahead and you can roll out. You know, that's a loose quote, of course, but he's like, there's no reason, you know, you don't have to stay here and complain about it if that's not what you want to deal with. And realistically, the older coaches have all made a ton of money. And if they don't want to deal with that, that's fine. But like, I think Marcus Freeman from Notre Dame the other day was saying something along the lines of like, this is the new world and we have to adapt and just move on. And this is what we got, you know? So I think age and being set in your ways definitely has something to do with it. And again, I think it's so hypocritical when you're a guy that's, you know, literally earned hundreds of millions of dollars, and basically anytime somebody else got a big deal or somebody else came calling, you use that as leverage to get to Bama, and you're making $11 million a year as a head coach. You know, you got other coaches. When Lincoln Riley left Oklahoma, I think, what was it? He had two houses in Oklahoma, and USC, I think, bought the two houses, right? And they bought him another house in California, and they made him one of the highest paid coaches in college football. And they gave him and his family, I think, unlimited use of the private jet. I mean, they loaded him up. So now clearly the resources are there, right? At least for these bigger schools, the resources are there. So now you're upset that these players are having an opportunity to capitalize. Like, shut your mouth. That sounds real bad when you're coming out and saying this, and, oh, why are we doing this? All they're concerned about is their money. Well, you're concerned about your money too. And like I said, my thing is, me personally, and this could come from the way I was raised, this could come from time being, you know, in the Army, I do believe in standardization. Now, I'm not talking about standardization like communism, like, you know, the government runs everything with an iron fist. That's not what I mean. But I mean standardization in that it shouldn't be just anybody can get whatever and do whatever whenever they feel like it. There should be some guidelines in place. That's all I'm saying. But yeah, this is crazy. And the mere fact that this dude will go on Capitol Hill and say this, man, is absolutely crazy.
Yeah.
So I'm not the guy to usually go here, but it's interesting. I think there's also a racial component to it. There was a book written some years ago about the NCAA and its development. And one of the things they actually talked about was, unfortunately, like keeping the money out of the hands of the African-American athletes, because African-Americans, you know, basketball, football, track, they have been some of the best athletes in most of these sports for a long time now. And that's part of the reason that the NCAA decided that they were going to keep up this charade of amateurism, right? Is to keep the money out of the hands of these African Americans and their families. So it's going to be very interesting to see going forward how much this changes and how much coaching turnover this causes, both in football and basketball. Because we already saw Coach K, he's a guy who he didn't even want to embrace the one and done culture, but he did. And I think he won a couple more chips out of it. And then, you know, when the NIL and all that stuff really started bubbling, and I'm not saying this is why, but he got out of there. And I think we're going to see a lot more of the older coaches in football and basketball say, nah, I can't deal with this. I'm done. Because like we talked about there, the control is not there. And now you also get a lot of athletes that are saying, hey, you know, pay me, right?
Yeah.
Well,
yeah.
how much am I going to get paid? Or I can get paid more over here. Because like, it's wild now. You're hearing some of these young recruits, the first thing they're saying, it's not even what scheme are we running, how would you think about using me, is how much you going to pay, you know, out of the gate. So, but I mean, far be it from me to speak against somebody getting their worth if that's what they feel. But, you know, some level of standardization I think would be good. Okay, that was our talk on the NCAA. Now let's go ahead and let's switch it up. Like I said, we're gonna forego the phone calls today. We got a low viewer count, and that's fine. But let's go ahead and talk NFL. So this past week has been wild in terms of NFL free agency started. You had the unofficial tampering period beforehand. And so you've seen a lot of player movement and you've seen a lot of things happen. So we're going to touch on some of those things. So G and I, we're both Baltimore Ravens fans, big Ravens fans. I know as a journalist, I'm not supposed to be a fan of anybody, but I could be objective, but still big Ravens fans. And we saw one of the biggest moves for the Ravens in a long time. And they grabbed Derrick Henry from the Tennessee Titans. He was a free agent running back. And I think that's going to be huge. So, G, you're there in Baltimore. First, tell me kind of how people are feeling in Baltimore about that move, and then give me your thoughts on it and how you think it helps or doesn't help the Ravens this season.
So when they said they was thinking about signing him, I think everybody started to tune in, watching the Bleacher Report, and various other news channels to see if we was going to really lock him down. I think mid-season last year, this previous year, we tried to get him in a trade. I think that the Titans turned the trade down and he ended up landing here in Baltimore. I look at what that means for us, right? Losing to the Chiefs. The Chiefs was able to shrink the game first half, time of possession. Didn't run the ball a lot second half or first half. And now it's like, well, how do you not run the ball, right? And so I think if we get a couple other pieces in that running back core, I think we'll be okay. But yeah, as that's absolutely big now. You're gonna have to keep 8 in the box every play.
Yep.
Maybe 9 now. I don't know, but just listening to some of his interviews, he's locked in. He's ready to prove the naysayers wrong. It's just going to be interesting to watch the Ravens this year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think Derrick Henry he fits the Ravens mentality, being big and physical and pound you, and just be a guy who is going to, throughout the course of the game, continue to beat you up until finally, even if you're playing against a team, and this is the crazy thing about Derrick Henry, it's frustrating, and you know this for years, the Ravens have played against him. He's the guy that he might have 15 carries for 30 yards, and then in that fourth quarter, he's going to bust a couple because he's continually put the pressure on you or that opposing defense all game long. And he's the guy that can do that. And he's a bell cow back. Yeah. He's the guy that can consistently get, those 30 carries. So those are the ones that you love to see. And again, those are a perfect fit for the Baltimore Ravens. Those are the type of running backs that you like. And to your point, you get a good backup, maybe a third or fourth round guy, and that could be real dangerous. I'm not sure what's the status on J.K. Dobbins. Hopefully he'll be ready for camp, and you'll see what he can do there. And that'd be a pretty good backup if he's healthy, if he can go. And so I thought that was a major move. And then you mentioned the AFC Championship game, 6 carries for Raven running backs in that game. Yeah. For a team that averaged 32 rush attempts per game during the season. I don't know. Well, I guess I do know. I have a thought on why they got out of character. I think that offensive coordinator Todd Monken, and I think also that Lamar Jackson kind of they chose the wrong time to try to get pretty and show you that, well, we can throw it too. And I really didn't like that, especially in situations where Lamar Jackson had opportunities to, as Shannon Sharp likes to say, jump out the window, right? And he looked as if he wanted to show everybody, I don't have to run. I can stand back here and I can pick you apart from the pocket. Now, yes, Lamar Jackson, you've improved tremendously as a passer. However, you still have a weapon that almost no quarterback in the history of the league, save maybe Michael Vick, Justin Fields, and Randall Cunningham have ever had. You got wheels like nobody, right? And so that's not something that you should throw away if you have the opportunity to exploit it. And so I look at it that way. But yeah, getting a guy like Derrick Henry, as long as you get back to your DNA as a Raven offensive football team, man, that's going to be tough. And maybe you get a couple of young wide receivers out of the draft. You got Zay Flowers. You probably need a bigger possession type receiver. But I don't know what they're going to do there. Obviously, they draft at 30 or 31, right? So that's going to be interesting to see what they do. But they definitely need I'd probably still grab a couple more receivers, right?
Yeah.
I would have thought, and maybe this is me, I would have thought that you try to take a shot at Mike Evans. I thought that would have been a brilliant weapon if they could have got that for Lamar Jackson. But, do you see them trying to maybe make a move in the receiving core because as you said, with Lamar and Derrick Henry, that's 8-9 in the box, man.
Yeah.
You're going to have a lot of one-on-one opportunities on the outside.
Yeah. I wouldn't be surprised if Ed didn't decide to just draft, right? This is supposed to be a pro wide receiver draft this year. So we pick up a few wide receivers there. I think we got 2 late picks. Compensatory picks we picked up. So we definitely need to do some work on the line, the offensive line.
That's
Losing
true.
Moses Malone, that was a big help. Our line has really been kind of just, I don't know, man. They suffered a lot of injuries last year, offensive line. So there's a lot of piecemeal during game time to try to get 5 there that can actually block for Lamar. I thought we did a good job with the run. I mean, the run block. They did a really good job with run block.
Yeah, they did.
I see Henry getting over 1,500 yards this year.
I don't think he's going to get that much because I think Lamar will probably take some of that away from him because Lamar gets 600-700 rushing yards in his sleep. Like, think about it. This past year was a down rushing year for him, and he led the team with about 870 rushing yards.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah, and I mean, I don't think they want Lamar running the ball. That's why you go and get a juggernaut in Henry. You don't want the face of your league running. Okay, yeah, maybe a couple third down runs here and there, but you don't want that to be his primary thing. So bringing him in, there's no excuse. He should not have that many carries next year or that many yards next year.
So I get you, he shouldn't, and I get you, they don't want him running the ball. However, if you're that coach and you see, okay, Derrick Henry is out here and they are crashing it to stop him, you're not going to tell Lamar pull that thing and take off? I know I would. Not nearly as much as he used to, but I'm going to tell him, use your discretion, but where you see that opportunity, pull it in the RPO and take off because they're not going to be able to deal with you.
Yeah, I think if we would have ran the ball 30 times against the Chiefs, we would have won.
Absolutely.
I think the running backs didn't execute when it was their time to do it, and that's why they knew this mid season when JK went down, or beginning of the season when JK went down, that they wanted a tier 1 running back. And Gus the Bus is nice; he's really good. I mean, but at the same time, you have a running quarterback as well too, out the read option. So, I don't think we got it done, and we probably should have had 30, should have dominated time of possession against the Chiefs. But instead, they did the same thing to us.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I think that it was the wrong time to get away from that because I believe as good a defense as the Chiefs had, run defense was their Achilles heel. I believe they were 23rd in the league in run defense this past season. So as good as they were defensively, and Spagnuolo is just an incredible defensive big game coach, they could be had on the ground. So why you would choose in that particular game to go away from it is beyond me, but it is what it is.
Like it was a social experiment.
Wrong time to do a social experiment. I'm with you. So another interesting thing. So, okay, let's talk about this. Right before we started, we got the breaking news that the Chicago Bears finally made the deal. They traded Justin Fields, their embattled former quarterback, to the Pittsburgh Steelers, where it looks like he's going to be the backup to Russell Wilson. What do you think of that move, and do you think that clears the decks for drafting Caleb Williams? Well, I'll tell you my thoughts on it after I get yours.
So do you think this is, I'm not going to ask a question with a question, but if this is Russell Wilson's farewell tour, right? Then I can see, why you make that move. But if they battling it out, and it's possible that Justin Fields can start week 1 for the Steelers, it's like, where do you put Russell at, right? I believe Russell will be the starter week 1. Yeah. Justin will probably sit. He's insurance. So, the Steelers fans don't want to see another terrible display from the quarterback position this year. And I think it was a good move for the Steelers. However, you have 2 starters now at quarterback.
Yeah.
So there's still plenty of other teams that need a veteran quarterback, and so it just could be one of those things where they picked up two quarterbacks just to trade on a draft. So it could be one of those situations as
I
well.
didn't even think about that. So I just saw something come across my phone saying that Justin Fields will not compete with Russell Wilson for starting Steelers quarterback job. I guess that means that they basically made it known that he's coming in to be Russell Wilson's backup. Okay. But I guess in fairness, if you're the Steelers, you got Russell Wilson, right? And the guy's a champion. The guy's a 9-time Pro Bowler. The guy before going to Denver was thought as somebody who was pretty much a lock for the Hall of Fame. He's been in 2 Super Bowls. Totally get it. And so you see them grab Justin Fields, and I think the good thing is, 1, he can learn a lot from Russell Wilson. 2, he's not too much of a change from what Russell Wilson likes to do if he should have to go in and play. And I think also this is a really good fit for Russell Wilson, because when Russell Wilson had his most success in the league, what was he doing? How did he do it, right? Think about this. He had an elite defense, the Legion of Boom. He had a great running game, and he could get out, extend plays, and make throws down the field when he needed to. That's exactly what the Steelers are going to want him to do. The Steelers have what's his name? Arthur Smith as their offensive coordinator. And remember, when he was in Tennessee as the offensive coordinator, he made Ryan Tannehill a Pro Bowler. How did he make Ryan Tannehill a Pro Bowler? Titans played good defense. Titans ran the ball, right, with Derrick Henry, and they did a lot off the play action, which is exactly where Russell Wilson has had his most career success. It's a really good fit for him. And that might not be the best thing for the Ravens, but it's a really good fit for him. And so now Justin Fields gets an opportunity to kind of start over, get out of Chicago, and again, learn from a guy who's a champion, and we'll see what that does for him down the road. This is super interesting.
Yeah. The AFC North it's going to be a problem this year.
For bloodbath, man.
Yeah, that's going to be a problem.
All right, so I guess the last NFL topic before we get out of here, and this is something that I have raved and ranted and raved about. So Dak Prescott is possibly up for a new deal this year, and if he gets the new deal, he's likely going to be the highest paid player in the history of the NFL. And it drives me crazy because he's been the highest paid player in the history of the NFL once before. I don't know why. What has he done to prove that he deserves to be the highest paid player in the history of the NFL? Okay, this year he made All-Pro. Cool. He's been a Pro Bowler multiple times. He's been a high-level passer, but he's not that guy. I've said it time and time again. He's not that guy. Now, let me give you some interesting stats that I got from Colin Cowherd's show. Matter of fact, I clipped it, and I'm going to play it. Hopefully the clip works here. But let's play it, and we'll come right back. And this will hopefully show you that Dak is not that guy, and he does not ever deserve to be the highest paid dude in the history of the National Football League. Check it out.
There are some sobering numbers and data on Dak Prescott that are almost hard to believe until you look at him. Since Dak Prescott has been in the league, this is pretty amazing. When he gets 30-plus rush attempts behind him, he's virtually impossible to beat, 53-7. Less than 30 rush attempts, he's not a very good quarterback, 20-34. But this is more sobering. If Dak just gets 100 yards rushing, again, he's Mahomes. He's 64-17. If he gets less than 100 yards, Dak Prescott has 9 career wins. That's it.
Now tell me, see, I see your face right now. There is no way you can tell me that a guy who is that dependent at quarterback on so many other factors should be the highest paid. He just shouldn't, because 1, we've seen he can't get it done when it counts the most. And 2, this is something I've talked about. He literally rode Ezekiel Elliott to that first major deal that he got. He literally did. He won Offensive Rookie of the Year because he's a quarterback. But Ezekiel Elliott had over 1,600 rushing yards in their rookie season. Like, come on, man. So I think if those numbers right there don't show you that Dak Prescott should never, ever, 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 ever be the highest paid player in the NFL, I don't know what's going to show you. What are your thoughts on Dak Do you think that because he's up next, he should reset the quarterback market? I think it's absurd, but where are you on that?
Yo, first of all, I'm not speaking for the Cowboys fans, but all of the Dallas Cowboy fans that I know, they don't want Dak as their quarterback.
Oh, wow. Okay.
They don't want him as a quarterback.
Okay.
And most of them believe that he's trash.
Wow.
And he chokes. So resetting the market will probably happen. It's just, I guess it's just common. Reset the market, increase the salary cap again, and
that's true.
He sells tickets. There's no shortage of seats. There's always a shortage of seats in the Cowboys stadium. So he's good for their brand, but not in the playoffs.
Well, see, so here's my thing, right? If I'm Jerry Jones and I would have done this the first time, see, Dak knows good and well all the benefits that come with being the quarterback of quote unquote America's team, right? Being the quarterback of the Cowboys. He knows that. And I think we probably can't even account for all the money that he makes off the field just from having the star on his helmet. So if I'm him, if I'm Jerry Jones, I say, okay, Dak, look, this is what I can give you. I can't give you any more than that. There's no way I'm giving you more than $50 million a year. I mean, obviously you don't say it like that, but there's no way I'm doing that because what's the max right now? About 58. And I think that's Joe Burrow. So anyway, you're not getting that because Joe Burrow took his team to a Super Bowl and was within literally 1 minute of winning it. Now, he didn't win it, so we can't give credit for losing. But the point is, it's so hard to get there in the NFL. Anyway, I would let Dak I would let him go out there and see what's available to him because I don't think that any other team is going to give him the type of money that he's looking for. I truly don't believe it. I think you got to play chicken in a situation like this. And if you lose, and you find yourself another quarterback. You figure it out. But there's no way I pay this dude that. There's no way.
The Cowboys don't get the rebuild. They have to have a starting quarterback that's, tier 1 quarterback every snap.
But they don't have that.
They don't, but yeah, he's going to get paid.
I think he will. Yeah, what I'm saying is that he shouldn't. Yeah. And if those numbers that we just heard don't prove it, there's nothing else that does.
Well, who do they have at backup? Did they already start to move in?
Cooper Rush. Cooper Rush, and then the third stringer is Trey Lance. So, yeah, Cooper Rush is not great, but I think he's only lost 1 game as a starter. And I think he started like 6 or 7 games in his career when Dak was injured.
That's one to watch.
Yeah, something to be said for that. But I think you're right. I think they are going to pay him, and it's going to be stupid because they're going to be stuck with this dude, and they're not going to get over the hump. Just, I mean, I've said it time and time again. The dude, he's not that dude. He's just not. And we just found out the evidence for it. If your own eyes aren't evidence enough, right? Yeah. But all right, G. This was a quick one, man. This was a quick one. We got some good topics in. We talked about some good stuff. And I'm going to let you get out of here, man. Anything you want to say before we roll out?
Hey, man, thanks for having me on. This is good. This was good. Yeah.
Of course, man.
Good
of course,
topics,
man.
Real good topics.
No doubt. All right, everybody, man. Listen, thank you for tuning in. Appreciate it. If you haven't already, please make sure you give us that like. And, of course, make sure you tune in next week, 7 p.m. Saturday evening for the next live show. And make sure you're checking out the content all throughout the week. So like, subscribe, hit the notification bell. And if you like the content, make sure you share it with other people. All right. And I'm out. Peace.